husband's 40th birthday party. I made him 21 different types of chocolate. One of those things was a chocolate tres leches cake, and my best friend's daughter fell in love. So today we're going to make a chocolate tres leches. I start with a cup of flour with a cup and 2 tablespoons of flour, 6 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And we're just going to stir that together. All right, now it's time to head over to the mixer. Okay, so in my mixer I have a half a cup, so 1 stick of butter that has been softening all day, and then a cup of sugar that we are going to beat until it's light and fluffy. This should take about 2 or 3 minutes just to get it to the light and airy stage. Our sugar and our butter are thoroughly combined and light and fluffy, and now we're going to add our 2 eggs and a half of a teaspoon of vanilla. And mix that all together until it's combined. Now we're going to add alternating our flour mixture and a cup of milk. So, start off with a little bit of that flour, cocoa powder, baking powder. Mix it together. Of our milk. Mix that together. We're going to add flour and then milk and then flour again. You always want to end on flour so that it has the time to thicken up. If you end on milk, it gets real soupy. More milk. And the last of our flour mixture, and then we'll be ready to bake it. So what we're going to do, you see how there's still some of the flour mixture on the outside of the bowl? We're going to use our spoon and just mix that in. Mix it all together. Make sure we have one consistency. And we're going to bake it. So I've greased an 8 by 8 inch pan. And all we're going to do is pour this in. And because this cake is so thick, I'm going to just spread it around. Make sure that it gets in the corners. And then we're going to bake it for at 350 degrees for 35 minutes. So when there's about 10 minutes left on your tres leches cake, we're going to start the milks. Tres leches literally means 3 milks. So we take a cup of whole milk in a saucepan, medium heat, a cup of evaporated milk, a third cup of sweetened condensed milk. This is what makes caramel. Get some more of that in there. That's the good stuff. And then I drizzle some chocolate syrup. I make my own. There's not really a measurement for this. It depends on how much chocolate you want. If you want it really chocolatey, slightly chocolatey. But you can use Hershey syrup. You don't have to use homemade. This is just, we're chocoholics in this family. So we're going to stir this together and heat it up just until it gets bubbly. We don't want to boil it because then the milks will scald and you get that burnt, acidic taste. That's not what we want at all. We're just going to let it heat up. This should take about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll set it aside and wait for our cake to finish. So the milk is almost to a boiling point. So now we're going to just turn off the heat and wait for the cake to be finished. This gives the milk a chance to cool down slightly and the cake a chance to finish. So our cake is out of the oven. Put a toothpick in, comes out clean. It's done. We're going to let this cool for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to poke holes in it all over and pour the milk in. Okay, now that our cake has had a chance to cool just a little, we're going to go through and just do about 1 inch apart little holes all the way through. And then we're going to pour our milk mixture that is still somewhat warm over the top. Okay. One of the things you'll notice is that it will pool up wherever you are. You have to slowly stop and let it absorb and then start again. And it's a messy process all the way around. So once we pour all of the milks in, the cake will absorb, and then we're going to let it cool overnight because chocolate tres leches gets topped with cocoa whipped cream, but it has to be completely cold to put the cocoa whipped cream on top, otherwise it'll just melt and slide off. So but the milk saturation in this cake is what makes it so moist. So you want to make sure that all of that milk gets distributed. All right. Now we're going to let this cool off for another 30 minutes and then we'll put it in the refrigerator till tomorrow. Our tres leches cake has been in the refrigerator overnight, and now it's ready for its whipped cream. So we're going to take a cup of heavy whipping cream, if I can get this open, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and mix that on high until we have stiff peaks. Our chocolate whipped cream is done. You can tell by the stiff peaks. That means that when I pick up the whisk, that it stays in form and doesn't change shape. Okay? Now we're going to come over here and ice it. So I'm going to stir the bottom of the bowl just to make sure everything's incorporated. And then lob on top. And I'm going to take an offset spatula and make sure you get whipped cream on every little edge. And there we are, chocolate tres leches. I can't wait for Alex to try this.